Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a Raven Guard Space Marine using just these 5 colours: Abaddon Black, Corvus Black, White Scar, Mephiston Red and Leadbelcher. And of course here we have the Space Marine we're going to paint in the colours of the Raven Guard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm coming in with some Abaddon Black and I'm going to base coat the model. Put some of the Abaddon Black onto your wet palette and we're going to thin it down with a little bit of water. We're going to thin it down so it runs nice and smoothly off the brush and won't clog up any of the details on the model as we're applying our undercoat. So for this you just want to cover all of the model with a couple of coats of Abaddon Black. Now over bare plastic this isn't going to give great coverage, so it is going to take a couple of coats to build up to a nice solid black cover all over the model. But just make sure you work this into all of the recesses and cover all of that grey plastic with a couple of coats of Abaddon Black. So don't worry about it being too patchy at this stage, we will be coming back in again with another coat of Abaddon Black afterwards to help make it a nice solid cover over all of the model. What we want to do at this stage is just make sure you work it into all of the recesses of the model to ensure we get a good coverage of Abaddon Black all over. And after the first coat you can still see it's incredibly patchy coverage, so I'm coming back in with a second coat to ensure we get a really solid cover of black all over the model. Now make sure you keep the paint nice and thin throughout this stage, we don't want to obscure any of the detail that's on the model, but just work your way around, cover all of the model with a second coat of Abaddon Black. And after that coat, I'm going to come in with some Corvus Black now. I'm going to paint all over the power armour to the Space Marine. Now this may seem a bit odd painting black over black, but the Corvus Black is a much lighter shade and would allow us to do some shading to add some interest to the model. But if we just left it with the Abaddon Black base coat, we wouldn't be able to shade it any darker, so the model would end up looking very flat. Make sure you also catch the gun casing and the chainsword. Just once again work your way around the model, ensure you cover all of that power armour with a couple of coats of Abaddon Black. And after a couple of coats you can see we've got a really solid light black colour all over that power armour and weapons. So now I'm going to come in with some Abaddon Black again, and for this I'm going to paint any pouches that are on the model. We're also going to pick out the belt that goes around his waist as well, and any bits of cabling like these here on his back. Just catch these with a coat of Abaddon Black just to make them a bit darker against the rest of the power armour. Be nice and careful when you are around your Corvus Black power armour, we don't want to get the Abaddon Black over the Corvus Black. And with that Abaddon Black applied, we've picked out a few details we want to be darker with the Abaddon Black. So the next thing, I'm coming in with some Mephiston Red, and for this I'm just going to paint the shoulder trim on his right shoulder pad. Raven Guard only mark up one of their shoulder pads. I'm just going to pick out the right shoulder pad with a coat of Abaddon Black. Obviously be nice and careful, try not to get this over any of the Corvus Black, but if you do, you can just come back in with some Corvus Black and bring it back to colour. I'm also going to pick out the handle to his chainsword as well, just to add a little bit of interest to the model. And with that Mephiston Red applied, you can see it's added a pop of colour to the Space Marine. Now with some white scar, I'm going to pick out the Aquila on his chest. Now this isn't going to give fantastic coverage over the black, but with a couple of thin coats, you'll build up to a nice solid white colour all over that Aquila. Obviously be nice and careful when you're around the black armour. If you need to, use a smaller brush so you don't get this anywhere we don't want it. See, after the first coat it's still quite patchy, so I'm coming back in with a second coat and a nice small brush just to get a solid cover of white scar all over that Aquila. And after a couple of coats of white scar, you can see we've got a nice bright Aquila on his chest. After that, there's just one final base coat to apply, and that's going to be some Leadbelcher, which I'm going to apply over all of the metal areas on the model. So it's things like the muzzle of the gun, as well as the magazine and the grip. I'm also going to pick out the vents on his backpack and any other metal details that are on the backpack. This Leadbelcher will really break up that solid black colour and add more interest to the model. And there are some little metal details here on his helmet I'm going to pick out as well. I'm going to pick out this part of his chainsword and the teeth to the chainsword as well. So capture all of these areas with a coat of Leadbelcher. And with that Leadbelcher applied, there's all the base colours applied to the model. So now it's time to start shading. So for this, I'm coming in with some Abaddon Black again. I'm going to really thin this down with some water. So I'm applying some Abaddon Black to my palette here. And then with lots and lots of water, I'm thinning it down so it's really, really smooth and flows off the brush really easily. So really add a lot of water. So it's got this really smooth consistency, as you can see here. Flows nice and easily. And now I'm going to apply a pin shade. So for this, using a small brush, I'm going to apply a little bit of this thinned down Abaddon Black into all of the recesses of the model. This is why we painted the armour with Corvus Black, because it allows us to come in with this Abaddon Black and add a recess shade into all of the deep areas of the power armour. Now this step will take a while, but just work your way around the model, and in every recess, every crease, every fold, the edge of every area, just apply a thin line of this thinned down Abaddon Black as a pin shade into all of the recesses. Now if you're not just limiting yourself to 5 colours, Nuln Oil does fantastic for this, but as I'm only using these 5 paints, I've got to thin down some Abaddon Black and make my own shade paint. So just work your way around the model, picking out the edges of every detail with a thin line of thinned down Abaddon Black to add some depth. So be nice and careful, try not to apply this too thick. If you do get it in areas you don't want, you can come back in with some Corvus Black and return that area to its original colour. And after we've applied the pin shade, I'm going to use some of this thinned down Abaddon Black again. I'm just going to paint it over areas like the undersuit. This will go into all of those recesses, darken those down, and also darken down the raised parts of the undersuit as well to add some distinction. I'm also going to paint it all over his weapon, so all over the pistol and the chainsword as well. And the Aquila, I'm going to make sure I work this into all of the recesses because I don't want to darken down the white scar too much. I do want to add some definition to that white to add some interest.
If you're enjoying the video, please press like. If you want more videos, press the subscribe button and ring the notification bell.
And once that shade has dried, you can see it's really added some interest and definition all over that power armour and to the rest of the model. So now I'm coming in with a 50-50 mix of Abaddon Black and White Scar. I'm going to create a grey colour so I can start highlighting the weapon areas. So apply about 50-50 of both the colours on your palette, mix them together so you get a nice grey colour, about the colour of Mechanica Standard Grey. Thin it down with a little bit of water. And now with a nice small brush, I'm going to apply an edge highlight all around the casing of the gun, the undersuit, any strapping, and his chainsword. So pick out all of the edges to all of the panels to the gun and just apply an edge highlight of this mix. Same with the pouches, just pick out all of the edges with a thin line of this mix we made. And also the undersuit. I'm going to pick out all of these raised ridges with a very thin line of this mix just to brighten them up against the rest of the armour. And finally for the chainsword, I'm going to come all the way around the edge of the black area with a thin line of this mix. By doing this, it will really make these areas pop and stand out and add some more interest to them. And with that first highlight applied, it's added some interest to those areas of the model. So now I'm going to take some white scar and add more of that to that mix we just made. So it will turn it to about a 70-30 mix of white scar and Abaddon Black. This will brighten it up to about the colour of Dawnstone. So mix that white in. Add a little bit of water again, just to keep it nice and thin. Make sure it flows nice and smoothly off the brush. And now I'm going to edge highlight all of the power armour. So once again, this is every panel, every bit of detail. I'm coming in adding a thin line of this mix to really make them pop. So this will take a while, but it's completely worth doing, as so much of the model is that black colour. This highlight will really make that black pop and stand out and add a load of interest to your army. So once again, take your time, work your way around the model, edge of every single armour panel, a bit of detail on the armour, add a thin line of this white scar and Abaddon Black mix as an edge highlight. If you do come in too thick with any of these lines, you can come in with some Corvus Black and paint back over it. But try and be nice and neat. And just apply an edge highlight to all of the panels on the power armour. Details here like the shoulder pad, you can use the side of your brush. It will give you a nice sharp edge highlight on the very tip of that shoulder pad. Which will be really neat around the helmet, because this will be a focal point of the model. So make sure you keep your lines nice and thin, but just pick out every detail with a thin line of this mix. And once that edge highlight is applied, it's really made that armour pop. So now there's only a couple of details left to highlight on the model. So now I'm coming in with some white scar. I'm going to highlight the Aquila. So for this, just pick out the most raised details on the Aquila with a bit of pure white scar, bring it back to colour after that shade darkened it down. This will leave some of our shade in all of those recesses and bring in the brighter parts back up to their bright white colour. And now with the Aquila highlighted, the next thing I'm going to paint is the eyes. So I'm coming in with some Mephiston red first. I'm going to sink this into the eye sockets of the model. Obviously be nice and neat, you don't want to get this over any of the areas that aren't the eye lenses, but just catch these with a coat of Mephiston red. And with the eye lenses base coated, the next step is I'm going to come in with a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and white scar. So put the two colours on your palette, mix them together until you get a lighter red, sort of pinkish colour. Thin it down with a little bit of water. And then I'm going to sink a little bit of this mix just as a line along the bottom of each of the eye lenses. And I'm also going to do an edge highlight on that red shoulder trim as well. So for the lower edges, you can catch these with the side of your brush. Just give them an edge highlight of this Mephiston red and white scar mix. And with the eyes and that shoulder trim highlighted, the next thing I'm going to do is just add a light spot into those eyes. So I'm coming in with some white scar. I'm just going to add a tiny dot in the back corner of each of the eye lenses to look like light reflecting and really sell that eye lens appearance. And with that dot in the eyes, that is the model painted. So now just to tidy up, I'm going to come in with some Abaddon Black. I'm going to paint all of the base so we get a nice solid black cover all over that base. Be nice and neat when you're around the feet. We don't want to get this over any of the details already painted and highlighted. Just cover all of the base and the rim with a coat of Abaddon Black. And once that has dried, there is how to paint a Raven Guard Space Marine using just 5 colours. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know in the comments down below what chapter would you like to see me try and paint using just 5 colours. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. And happy painting!